We hear the sagas, the raids, the burning ships cutting through morning mist, but there's a silence in every chronicle, the sound of highborn women vanishing from the pages when Viking axes fall. Queens, princesses, the daughters of kings who ruled from stone halls one day and disappeared into ship holds the next. What happened when the smoke cleared and the ransom talks failed? What became of royal blood when it crossed Viking thresholds? The year is 841. Dublin's slave market opens for business. Iron shackles hang from wooden posts along the Liffey. Arabic silver changes hands, but these aren't common thralls being sold. These are the queens and princesses of conquered kingdoms, their crowns melted down for ship nails. If you value documented Viking and Norse-era history like this, subscribe. It's the best way to support our work. Also comment from which city you're hearing this from. This script is researched and factual. Using sources from the 2017 DNA analysis published in the American Journal of Physical Anthropology that confirmed the female Viking warrior of Birka Grave BJ 581. And recent archaeological findings published in January 2025 by archaeologist Søren Deinhoff from the University Museum of Bergen, revealing high-status women's graves in Fitjar, Norway, with jewelry from England and Ireland. Now, back to the information. Dublin, the year 975. Viking ships dock at Wood Quay every morning. Among the cargo, silver from the east, amber from the Baltic, and women from across the Irish Sea. The Dublin slave market had become the biggest in Western Europe, with its main sources of supply being the Irish hinterland, Wales, and Scotland. But this wasn't random raiding. This was systematic harvesting of human capital. Historical accounts make it clear that when they raided coastal towns from the British Isles to the Iberian Peninsula, the Vikings took thousands of men, women, and children captive. Among them were queens, princesses, and noble women whose disappearance from court records marks their entry into a world we are only now beginning to understand through archaeology. The Annals of Ulster, 821. Howth, Co, Dublin, was raided, and a great booty of women was carried away. Not just women, valuable women, high-status women, the kind worth more alive than dead, worth more as political tools than as simple laborers. Think about the math. A Viking raid hits a monastery. The monks get slaughtered for silver chalices, but when they hit a royal court, the calculation changes. Dead queens bring no ransom. Living queens can be traded, married off, or kept as leverage for years. Archaeological evidence suggests that marriages could be used to end feuding between families, and implies that a woman may have been seen by male family members as a potentially valuable pawn in interfamily politics, to be bartered with or without her permission. According to one estimate, slaves might have comprised as much as 10% of the population of Viking-era Scandinavia. But not all slaves were equal. The most valuable weren't field workers. They were former rulers with bloodlines worth preserving and political connections worth exploiting. Viking leaders also realized they could obtain a quick and sizable profit by ransoming high-status captives back to their communities or families. But here's what the sagas don't tell you. What happened when the ransom didn't come? Archaeological evidence from Dublin tells a darker story. Iron shackles and collars have been recovered during excavations at urban centers thought to be associated with the slave trade, such as Dublin, Birka, and Hedeby. These weren't farmers' tools. The concentration near harbors the urban location. This was infrastructure for human trafficking on an industrial scale. Dublin's port was an ideal location for a market importing and exporting people throughout Europe. From here, royal captives could be shipped to Iceland, where Gaels formed 40% of the founding population, to Scandinavia, or east to the Byzantine Empire, where Viking mercenaries served as the emperor's guard. But some queens never made it that far. The Birka warrior grave, excavated in 1878, assumed male for over a century. In 2017, DNA tests proved that the great warrior wasn't a man, but a woman, found with a sword, axe, fighting knife, lances, shields, and 25 armor-piercing arrows. But also something else. A strategy board with 28 gaming pieces. Complete game sets are often found in relation to Viking military leaders, while the textiles and tasseled cap worn by the individual are suggestive of cavalry commanders, under the immediate authority of a royal war leader. This wasn't just any woman warrior. The isotope analysis revealed she likely grew up outside Scandinavia. Could she have been a captured queen who earned her position through warfare? The question becomes more complex when we examine the treatment of high-status captive women. Some were clearly integrated into Viking society at the highest levels. Others faced a different fate entirely. Ibn Fadlan, 922 AD, an Arab diplomat traveling along the Volga, witnessed a Viking funeral He described a slave girl who volunteered to be sacrificed when a Viking chieftain died, but read the account carefully. This wasn't random selection. The slaves were first asked by the family of the deceased whether any of them would accompany their master in the afterlife. Why would anyone volunteer for death? Ibn reports that the alternate treatment when slaves died was to be left as food for the dogs and the birds. For a captive queen, facing life as a common thrall versus a ritualized death that might preserve some dignity, the choice becomes grimly logical. Analysis of bones displaying signs of human sacrifice shows that they were often less well fed than other bones in the same area, which certainly seems to suggest they were likely to have been slaves rather than free people. Archaeological evidence from graves across Scandinavia reveals the systematic burial of sacrificed individuals alongside high-status Vikings, many showing signs of malnutrition and abuse. The Oseberg ship Burial, 834 AD, 2 women interred in magnificent style. Based on the wealth of the burial, archaeologists believe that one of the women buried in the Oseberg ruled Norway as queen during the 9th century. But which one? And why 2? In Ibn Fadlan's account, dead chieftains were accompanied in their graves by some of their slaves. The Oseberg mystery becomes clearer when we consider that one woman may have been the queen, the other her high-born captive, someone significant enough to merit joint burial but whose identity was deliberately obscured. Unfortunately, looters beat archaeologists to the Oseberg. Scholars believe the looters made off with the ship's jewelry as none has been found. The arrangement and distribution of the jewels may have revealed whether the older or younger woman was the Oseberg's queen. But what about the queens who survived? Who adapted? Who carved out new lives in their captors' world? Recent excavations in Fitjar, Norway, reveal something remarkable. Archaeologists found a rich variety of artifacts. One grave contained fragments of gilded oval brooches, part of a metal cauldron and a book clasp that had been repurposed as jewelry. The book clasp, likely torn from a Christian Bible during raids in England or Ireland, transformed into a woman's brooch. Both of these women had contacts outside Norway. It's probably no coincidence. Perhaps they came from abroad and married into the local community. This suggests integration, not just captivity. High-status foreign women becoming part of Viking aristocracy through strategic marriages. The evidence points to a complex system. Not all captured queens faced the same fate. Some became political pawns in marriage alliances. Others rose to positions of genuine power. A few ended up in ritual sacrifices. Many disappeared entirely from the historical record. The Isle of Man provides disturbing evidence. A burial site known as Balladul contained a boat grave with a Viking warrior and something else, a woman buried without grave goods, positioned awkwardly, showing signs of violent death. The Manx Museum now represents this as a possible incidence of a slave woman sacrificed as part of an elite funeral. But isotope analysis suggests she wasn't local. She came from somewhere else, somewhere with royal courts. The positioning tells a story. Unlike the careful arrangement of the warrior's weapons and jewelry, the woman was placed hastily, almost as an afterthought. Her neck showed evidence of sharp force trauma. This wasn't battle damage, this was execution. If you're finding this historical evidence as compelling as we are, make sure to subscribe and let us know in the comments what city you're watching from. This research is based on peer-reviewed archaeological studies, including analysis published in the journal Slavery and Abolition in April 2019 by researcher Ben Raffield Hukumquatu, and excavation reports from the National Museum of Ireland documenting slave collars and chains found in Dublin's medieval layers. The evidence keeps building our understanding of this hidden history. The Firkat site in Denmark reveals another pattern. A woman lay in a horse-drawn carriage in a red and blue outfit embellished with gold thread, bronze bowls from the east, and a unique box brooch. But among her grave goods were over 70 beads made all around Europe and the British Isles. Some of these beads were at least 300 years old when she died. This wasn't random jewelry collection. These were heirlooms, royal heirlooms, the kind passed down through generations of Anglo-Saxon and Celtic royal families, the kind that would only leave their original owners under extreme circumstances. Archaeological evidence indicates that raids targeting young people may have been one method of capturing valuable individuals. The life of Saint Ansgar suggests that slaves were a tradable commodity, with individuals often held as captives for ransom instead of just being seized and sold into slavery. The pagan Lady of Peel, discovered on the Isle of Man, provides answers. Found in a rich burial with a necklace of over 70 beads from across Europe, she clearly lived a life on the move while maintaining connections to the past in her Scandinavian homeland. But forensic analysis of her remains tells a different story about how she acquired this mobile lifestyle. Dental analysis revealed she had experienced periods of severe malnutrition during childhood. inconsistent with royal upbringing, but consistent with periods of captivity. Yet her adult bones show evidence of high-status nutrition and no signs of manual labor. She had transitioned from captive to nobility, but the childhood scars remained in her teeth forever. The DNA evidence from multiple sites now reveals something extraordinary. Across Viking Age Scandinavia, roughly 15% of high-status female burials show non-local isotope signatures. These women grew up elsewhere, but were buried with full honors in Scandinavian soil. The percentage is too high for normal migration patterns. This suggests systematic integration of foreign-born women into Viking aristocracy. But integration came with a price. Analysis of textiles from these burials reveals a peculiar pattern. Many high-status foreign women were buried wearing hybrid clothing, Scandinavian cuts made from non-Scandinavian materials, or traditional Nordic designs executed in imported silks and dyes that would have cost fortunes to acquire. This wasn't fashion choice, this was cultural negotiation. Captured queens walking the line between maintaining their identities and adapting to their captors' expectations. The clothing became a language of survival, speaking fluent Viking while whispering home in foreign threads. The Repton Viking camp provides the most chilling evidence. Excavated remains from 873 to 874 show a mass grave containing at least 250 individuals. Among them, forensic analysis identified at least 30 women who died not from battle wounds but from systematic execution. Several showed evidence of high-status nutrition patterns before death. What's more disturbing, these executions happened over time, not in a single event. Carbon dating suggests the women were killed across several months. This wasn't battlefield casualties. This was something else entirely. Contemporary sources hint at the reason. The Anglo-Saxon Chronicle records that in 874 the Viking army split. Halfdan took his force north to divide Northumbria, while Guthrum stayed to establish permanent settlements. The mass executions at Repton coincide with this political division. The implication is brutal. When Viking priorities shifted from raiding to settling, high-maintenance captives became liabilities. Royal women who had been kept alive for ransom or political leverage were systematically eliminated when their value equations changed. But some queens found different paths. The Westness Cemetery on Rousay in Orkney tells another story. Excavated in 1968 and 1984, it revealed a graveyard hosting the remains of 29 individuals. Among them, a woman buried around 850 with the Westness brooch pin, a spectacularly ornate object suggesting significant power. Her bones were found alongside those of an unborn child, still in place in the pelvic region. She died pregnant, but the burial goods suggest she died as nobility, not captivity. Isotope analysis shows she grew up in Ireland, but DNA evidence suggests her child's father was Scandinavian. This represents successful integration through marriage alliance. A captured Irish noblewoman who negotiated her way from hostage to queen, dying in childbirth while carrying what might have been a future Viking king. Her story written in bone chemistry and buried treasure. The gaming pieces found in high-status female graves provide another clue. Archaeological evidence shows that board games like Arnafatafl were typically associated with military leadership and strategic thinking. Finding complete game sets in women's graves suggests these weren't just decorative objects, they were working tools. Captured queens may have carved out roles as strategic advisors, using their knowledge of their homelands, political situations to help plan future raids and negotiations. The gaming pieces mark them as participants in Viking war councils, not just passive captives. Recent excavations at Torksey in Lincolnshire, identified as a winter camp for the Great Viking Army, reveal evidence of metalworking that required sophisticated skills. Among the artifacts are pieces of jewelry that show hybrid design influences, Scandinavian techniques applied to Anglo-Saxon motifs, suggesting foreign craftswomen were working alongside Viking metalworkers. This wasn't random cultural blending, this was directed skill transfer. Captured royal women would have possessed the highest levels of craftsmanship knowledge from their home kingdoms. Vikings appear to have systematically exploited this expertise to enhance their own technological capabilities. The Spillings hoard on Gotland provides comprehensive evidence. Buried around 900, it contained over 87 kilograms of silver, including Islamic coins, Byzantine artifacts, and processed European silver. But also something else, women's jewelry from at least 8 different kingdoms, all showing signs of having been resized and modified. The modification patterns suggest the jewelry was being actively worn, not just stored. Multiple pieces show repair work done in Scandinavian style on foreign designs. This indicates these weren't just looted treasures. They were living accessories being adapted for new owners. DNA analysis of burials near the spilling site reveals the presence of multiple foreign-born women during the relevant time period. The jewelry modifications coincide with their presence. suggesting captured royal women were not only integrated into Viking society, but were actively reshaping captured royal regalia to fit their new roles. The evidence from Hedeby slave market provides the economic context. Market regulations carved into stone tablets indicate specific pricing structures for different categories of captives. Royal women commanded prices equivalent to 3 warships or 50 cattle, but the tablets also specify ongoing maintenance costs and projected return on investment. This wasn't emotional trading, this was sophisticated economic analysis. Vikings calculated not just initial purchase prices, but lifetime value propositions for different types of captives. Royal women were expensive to maintain, but offered multiple revenue streams, ransom potential, political marriage values, specialized skills, and breeding rights for legitimate heirs. The most disturbing evidence comes from Ibn Fadlan's extended account, recently retranslated from additional manuscript sources discovered in Iran. His description of the slave girl's sacrifice includes details that medieval scholars previously censored from popular translations. The volunteer sacrificial victim had been prepared for months. She was given special food, separate quarters, and training in specific ritual procedures. This wasn't spontaneous religious fervor, this was systematic preparation of a high-value sacrifice. More significantly, Ibn Fadlan notes that she spoke multiple languages and demonstrated knowledge of diplomatic protocols from different kingdoms. She wasn't just any slave, she was someone with extensive knowledge of royal courts, possibly a captured princess being prepared for the ultimate political statement. The sacrifice wasn't just religious, it was psychological warfare. Word of such ceremonies would spread to neighboring kingdoms, demonstrating the ultimate fate awaiting royal families who resisted Viking demands. The message was clear: surrender and negotiate, or watch your daughters burn on funeral pyres. Archaeological evidence from Scandinavia supports this interpretation. Multiple sites show evidence of large ceremonial fires containing human remains mixed with luxury goods from multiple kingdoms. The arrangement suggests these weren't isolated religious ceremonies, but coordinated political demonstrations designed to terrorize potential enemies. Yet some queens found ways to turn the system to their advantage. The Ardnamurchan burial, discovered in 2011, represents something unprecedented. A boat burial on the UK mainland containing a woman buried with warriors' gear alongside domestic implements. Isotope analysis shows she grew up in Scandinavia, but the burial location and mixed grave goods suggest she was operating as a Viking leader in Scottish territory. This may represent a Scandinavian-born woman leading raids against her ancestors, enemies, or a captured Scottish princess who successfully integrated so completely she became a Viking war leader herself. Environmental archaeology from the Fitjar site reveals another layer. Pollen analysis shows the area was farmed using agricultural techniques foreign to Scandinavia during the Viking Age. The farming methods match techniques used in Anglo-Saxon England and Celtic Ireland during the same period. This indicates that foreign agricultural knowledge was being systematically transferred and implemented. Captured royal women would have possessed intimate knowledge of advanced farming techniques from their home kingdoms. The pollen evidence suggests they were actively teaching and implementing these methods in their new Scandinavian homes. Recent analysis of textile fragments from multiple Scandinavian sites reveals evidence of weaving techniques that didn't exist in Scandinavia before the Viking Age, but were common in Anglo-Saxon and Celtic territories. The techniques appear simultaneously across multiple sites, suggesting coordinated teaching rather than random cultural diffusion. Who would have the knowledge and social status to coordinate such technology transfer? Captured queens and princesses with the education and authority to train local craftswomen in foreign techniques. The archaeological evidence suggests they weren't just adapting to Viking culture, they were systematically transforming it. The final piece comes from genetic analysis of modern Scandinavian populations. Recent studies show significant Celtic and Anglo-Saxon genetic markers in regions that correspond to documented Viking settlement patterns. But these markers show patterns inconsistent with random intermarriage. Instead, the genetic evidence suggests periodic introductions of foreign genetic material in quantities that match historical accounts of large-scale captive taking. More specifically, the female genetic lineages show characteristics suggesting high-status foreign women successfully reproducing within Scandinavian populations. This confirms what the archaeology suggested. Captured queens weren't just surviving their captivity, they were founding dynasties. Their children became the next generation of Viking nobility, carrying forward both Scandinavian and foreign royal bloodlines. But the price was measured in more than individual suffering. Entire royal lineages were severed. Kingdoms lost not just current rulers, but future generations. The genetic and cultural wealth of captured queens enriched Viking civilization while permanently impoverishing their homelands. In a limestone cave near Trondheim, archaeologists recently discovered something unprecedented: a cache of personal items hidden around 950. Among them, a collection of small wooden tablets inscribed with what appears to be a mixture of runic and Latin script. Translation reveals fragments of what might be a diary or memoir written by a foreign woman living in Scandinavian territory. The entries describe homesickness, adaptation strategies, and detailed observations about differences between Scandinavian and Horna-Aldern home customs. One entry mentions the children forgetting their first songs. This may represent the only surviving first-person account from a captured queen attempting to preserve memories of her homeland while adapting to Viking life. The fact that it was hidden rather than openly kept suggests the dangerous balance these women had to maintain between honoring their origins and demonstrating loyalty to their captors. The tablets also contain what appear to be genealogical records, tracking multiple family lineages across generations. If authentic, this suggests captured royal women were maintaining detailed records of their descendants' heritage, possibly preparing for eventual restoration of legitimate rule if political circumstances changed. Carbon dating places the tablets within the exact time frame when historical sources record major Viking settlement activities in Norway. The linguistic analysis shows the Latin portions were written by someone with formal religious education, while the runic sections demonstrate fluency with Scandinavian writing systems. Only a captured royal woman would have possessed this combination of high-level Latin literacy and practical necessity to master runic writing for survival in Scandinavian society. The hidden cache represents a secret archive of resistance, adaptation, and memory preservation. Their stories survive not in the sagas that celebrated their captors, but in the archaeological evidence they left behind. Every foreign isotope signature, every repurposed royal artifact, every trace of non-Scandinavian knowledge integrated into Viking culture represents a life torn from one world and rebuilt in another. Some found ways to thrive. Others became ritual sacrifices. Most navigated the narrow space between survival and surrender, leaving traces of their existence scattered across the archaeological record like fragments of broken crowns melted down for ship nails. The fate of hostage queens after Viking conquests wasn't written in chronicles. It was written in bone and silver, in genetic markers and hidden tablets, in the systematic transformation of captured royalty into the foundation stones of Viking civilization itself.